there's a few on that one. If we show them all, and then I'll talk about, yes, that's some Japanese tourists. And this is Finland. This is a sauna called Sompa Sauna, which is a very famous DIY sauna community built originally by a group of anarchists on a plot of land that was flagged for demolition. And since it's been built and disassembled and knocked down several times, and it keeps finding a new home and carrying on. And it's open 24/7, and it's free for anyone. So everybody can turn up and use the sauna for free. Ideally, you bring a few logs as your contribution to throw on the steam, or to throw on the fire, I mean. And you know, anything you bring, you take away with you, so you can have a picnic as long as you remove all your rubbish. And they do have a sort of can recycling thing where they send the cans back and they get some funds, but it's just all funded by really passionate volunteers who there's a real community around it. And they they have a stage with some musical instruments, which, as you'll see on the next slide, Gabrielle, there's Arne, who is a vicar and is also a saw player, and is in a leading folk band in Finland. And he just hopped up next to the piano and started playing O Sole Mio on his saw. And then after he'd finished his rendition, he then went to one of the saunas and started reciting poetry in Finnish. So he was, and everyone was captivated by him. And he goes there on a regular basis, and you know, he knows everybody there. There's a hardcore of people, but like I said, you know, a group of Japanese tourists had turned up, and they weren't even going into Helsinki. They were going just to Sompa Sauna, which is between the city centre and the airport, to go and experience this incredible sauna community, and which is on the water, so you can swim and cool off. And there are a few different saunas of varying temperatures, including the hot chili sauna that has an icon of 3 chilies outside it, which is a vindaloo for sure. And they were very proud to, and probably found it very amusing to get me into that sauna. And it was about 120, 130, and they were pouring steam and on the rocks. And I mean, I think that I did think that I was going to melt in there. I didn't last that long. There was me and another guy from Cameroon who had lived in Finland for about 10 years and had never been there before. And he was in next to me, and he fled after a few seconds, like kind of grabbing at his skin and shouting. And I was quite close behind him, and we both jumped into the water and to cool off. Meanwhile, all the hardcore Sompa Sauna bathers were still in there pouring loads of steam on the rock. So, but there was also where Arne was reciting his poetry was a much gentler, 60-degree softer heat, and a very different atmosphere. So you can find everything you want there, and you don't have to pay, so you just turn up. So it's become a kind of cultural institution in itself, and it symbolizes some spirit of the Finnish kind of spirit, in that it's about creating a community and giving to everyone and being equal and open and accessible. And it's something that even the politicians take dignitaries to visit because they're very proud of it. And which is great, because it started out as a rebel yell against the authorities. And it is about to be demolished again and moved on, because there's a load of high rises, which are not in this picture, but are kind of behind where the guy standing up is, which are creeping along the shoreline. So they are going to have to relocate again at some point. So yeah, that's Sompa Sauna. So that was it. That's in the best of. And then I think we go on to some other ones, Gabrielle. I think there might be another. Oh no, that's another Sompa Sauna picture, just kind of showing. All right, this, and then do you want to show the next ones? Because that's the inside of this sauna. And this is a smoke sauna in Estonia, built next to a lake in the south of Estonia, belonging to a private owner, a guy called Mark, who was a tech entrepreneur who's built 3 saunas on his land and is a sauna fanatic. And we were lucky enough to be invited to go and have a smoke sauna there with Mark and some of his friends. And they were, by their own admission, all pagans. And that was what they said from the get-go. So before we got into the sauna, we had to go and go for a walk around the sacred grove, which was about 5 minutes away, which is an old 1,000-year-old ring of trees, and make a blessing and throw some lily of the valley, which was the flower that happened to be out because it was May, into the center of the circle. And there's also a sauna built next to this sacred grove, because in lots of Estonian history, having a sauna would be next to somewhere sacred, like a tree or a rock, because the sauna itself was also quite sacred, especially the smoke sauna, which is a sauna with no chimney, that you light hot rocks for hours. It takes about 7 hours or something to warm up. And so it's black. The walls are black. These are the windows, and they've done some paint drawings on them. And the whole space is black, the benches, everything. And it's really hot, but it's got a beautiful soft heat. And when you pour water on the rocks, you get an incredible lolu, or steam, or leil, as they call it in Estonian. And so we went into this sauna with about 6 other Estonians, and as is quite typical there, to light the smoke sauna, it takes a lot of effort. So you make it a long session and you stay in for quite a few hours. And Saturday night is a typical sauna night in Estonia, but this wasn't a Saturday. But we started at about 7 in the evening, and we went through till about 1 in the morning, in and out and jumping in the lake, which is in the next picture, I think, Gabrielle. There's everyone was naked, which of course for me was like a huge challenge. I had to overcome that, which I write about in the book, because I think, being British, that's something that everybody talks about, and lots of people ask me about when I start talking about sauna. So I had to overcome my inhibitions there. I did have my sarong with me, but but of course by the end of the night I cared so much less about it all, and we were jumping in and out of the lake, and then there's another sauna. If you go to the next slide, Gabrielle, so we punted naked across that pond. Maya took that photo while naked on a raft in the middle of the lake, and there was another sauna in there, and we went from sauna to sauna all night. And there was lots of beers, and then afterwards we had a big meal, because we were starving. We were famished by then, and our host had made a big soup. And it was a really magical experience. And if anyone can get the chance to go to Estonia and go to southern Estonia for a smoke sauna, it really is something very special. So that was Estonia. And then I think that's the next slide. Oh, that was the pond that we were jumping in and out of. And this is Maya's tent sauna. So she was very happy to, she loves her tent sauna, and she takes it everywhere, and it takes about half an hour to heat up. And she goes right out into the wilds of Finland and hikes, and then comes back to her van and puts her sauna together. And it has a little stove in it, and it seats 2 people comfortably, or 3, maybe 3 or 4 with a squeeze. And although this looks all very easygoing and sublime, actually, when she took this picture, just as she was about to take it, it blew away because it was a really windy day. So the tent sauna blew away the top of it, and she had to, and it was a really fast flowing river, so she ended up having to go all the way downstream, running after it, and try and fish it out of a sort of pool of still water. But so I think that's why that picture made it in, because for her that was quite possibly one of the hardest shoots in the book. Even though they were all quite hard, because our brief was no identifiable faces, and obviously we had to try and get a mix of age and gender and background, and so without showing anybody's actual faces. So it was quite a challenging brief, especially at the big community saunas like Sompa sauna in the first slide. So she had a lot of, yeah, it was a big challenge for her, that. So then after the tent sauna, this was the peat sauna. So if you want to show all of these, Gabrielle, because there's this is built on a virgin peat swamp in the sort of middle east of Finland by a man who is 87 and has built 5 saunas on his piece of swamp, all by hand, using reclaimed materials found in the swamp. So everything he uses is taken from the swamp. No, that's the next one. Oh. And it's an unbelievable place, because he cycled 7 kilometers to meet us, dragging a trolley filled with a whole thing of water on the back of his bike. And of course, he said the secret to his youthfulness is the fact that he has a sauna every day, at least 1, sometimes 2 or 3, because he's got 5 saunas here at this site and another 2 saunas at home. So he is a self-confessed sauna addict. And part of the experience here of is to go into the peat bog, which the other slide showed, and cover yourself in, scoop peat out of the bog, because peat is filled with humic acid, which is really good for your skin. And then you cover yourself in the peat, go into the sauna for about 20 minutes, let the peat soak into your skin, and then go out and rinse it off. And honestly, your skin, you feel like a newborn after you've done that, because we did it and my skin afterwards felt incredible. And if you've got psoriasis or eczema or anything, irritable skin, it's really healing. And peat saunas are a bit of a thing in Finland. This is just one example, and this is probably one of the most kind of wild examples, because near to this peat swamp was another peat swamp, and where a guy has been manufacturing his peat, and you can buy it in various shops. You can buy peat scrubs and peat rinses and everything. But this one, because it was so beautiful to look at, the detailing and everything about it was totally otherworldly. This one, we shot the other place as well, but the pictures from this one are more stunning for the highlights for now. But yes, a peat treatment is something I think that people are trying to introduce a little bit more into the Finnish sauna scene. There's a couple of places where you can go and get that done in other cities. But yeah, anyway, that's another one in our best of. And then the next one, Gabrielle, is Well, that's the stove of Finland's oldest sauna, which is called Rajaportti and is in Tampere, which is the sauna capital of the world, because it has more saunas than any other city, allegedly. And this sauna doesn't have a bathing area, so it's more of it's kind of on the corner of the city next to a busy road, or not a busy road, but a road, and it has a cafe with loads of different beers, because having a beer after the sauna is a really big thing to do in Finland. But the steam and the softness that it creates was really special, and it was here that we put this in the best lolu or steam category of the book, because the person who mans Rajaportti gave us a demonstration about how steam goes around the space and how it affects your body. And I think for me, this was where I really understood what the steam, how the steam can feel, and the difference between a good steam and a bad steam, and a not very well ventilated space. And it suddenly all made sense to me because it was so well explained. But part of the reason it's so good is because the walls are so thick, so the heat is kind of trapped inside the walls for many hours. Even when the sauna's off, it's still a bit warm. And I mean, it can, where they pour a lot of steam on, it's a huge stove, and the steam can, the spaces are quite small, and it's divided into men and women categories there, because it's very old. And you can really get a good big hit of steam that kind of goes all over your body, and but it doesn't scald you. It's quite gentle, but really hot, rather than being kind of abrasive and whipping you. And you know, I mean, if you ask a Finn about this, they can talk about the lolu for a very long time, and it's quite often the defining feature of what makes a good sauna, a bad sauna, or a mediocre sauna. And Rajaportti, by all accounts, is totally one of the best, even amongst the Finns I've spoken to. So that one makes it into the best of as well. And I don't know if there's any more pictures of it. Oh, I think must be, that's definitely, that's not in Rajaportti, but I think it's just some rocks and the lolu in the steam in process. I think someone's just poured steam on there, and Maya's photographed it. And then the next one is that it, Gabrielle?
I think so. It's not
maybe that's it. Yeah, Rajaportti. Yeah. Yes. Okay, that's it. That's all the photos that we showed to just kind of highlight what we were trying to do, I think, in the book. So I don't know what else I should be saying, or do you have some ideas, Gabrielle?
No, I mean, that's absolutely wonderful, and I think it's so lovely to hear the stories behind it. I think especially because you have kind of come to it from a bit of a beginner's mind and stuff, and so the discovery of it and the way you describe the experience and the kind of things that in such like a sensory way is just so wonderful to hear. But yeah, let's open it up to questions from the audience. Yeah, I know everyone's kind of really enjoyed. We've had some great feedback about your book already. So we had in the chat, so Paul, I think you asked, where does the smoke go, which I'm guessing might be this the smoke sauna. So
yes, yeah, I forgot to say that. So what happens is, after it's heated up, you go in, and all the smoke, there's a word for it which I can't remember, it's in Estonian different, and you open the door, and all the smoke, you have to get all the smoke out before you go in there, obviously. So the smoke comes out, but you can still, when you're in there, you can taste that smoky taste in the back of your throat, and you know, it's not smoky and uncomfortable at all, but the aroma of the smoke, which is actually really nice, is still present in the space, which kind of adds another element to it, because you've got the water and the darkness and the fire, and it feels quite primeval. I think it really helps to take you back to something slightly otherworldly. Yeah.
Have we got any other questions from participants? No, maybe I'll go. For you, like, what really makes a great sauna?
For me, I like a body of fresh cold water. I think that's important for me, probably because I've come from the cold swimming background into sauna. So if you can, if you can, so therefore it's probably somewhere in nature, or actually in my local Lido, you can jump in the Lido after the sauna. But water is an important part of it. I mean, it's and the quality of the stove. You know, it has to be hot enough, and it has to, ideally you can pour rocks on the stove, but you can't in this country, so I can't. It's a bit unfair to say that's my ideal sauna, because here we don't really have that opportunity. Hopefully we will one day. Hygiene is really big for me. If it's clean, I mean, you know, in that part of the world, there's so much rinsing and washing before you go in the sauna. You rinse off, then when you're inside, you're sitting on a towel, and even your feet are on the bench on the same towel, so that you don't leave your sweat all over the place for other people to sit in, which kind of makes perfect sense. And then you come out and you rinse off before you jump in the pond or the pool. You rinse off, so there's a lot of rinsing and a lot of washing, because it was, you know, about being clean in the old. It was a way to wash yourself, and actually it still is. When you have a really long sauna session and you do the cleaning, or you can exfoliate with a salt scrub, or just a mitt even, I feel really clean afterwards, in a way that I haven't, which I never get in a shower. So there's something about the long sweating process that does really cleanse, is really cleansing, and that is a really addictive feeling. I think so. That's, I suppose that's for me, the ideal sauna is to come out feeling different, whatever it takes, feeling really different from the way I felt when I went in. So into a really different state of mind, physically feeling clean, like I've said, but mentally kind of switching off the brain and slowing my mind down, and just going into a much more meditative space, which, when I was writing the book, didn't happen that much, because I was trying to remember everything that was going on, because I couldn't take a phone in there, so I couldn't record, and I couldn't take a pen and paper in there either, because everything gets soggy. So I'd have to, and obviously loads of the best conversations tended to happen in an impromptu fashion in the sauna. Even though I'd do the formal interview before we'd get in, loads of really good things would be said, and then I'd come out and I'd try and jot them down quickly on when I was cooling off and go back in. But since I've written the book, I've been lucky enough to have some properly relaxing sauna sessions, where I'm not trying to remember anything, or talk to anyone, or find something out, or observe something. It's just being in the space, which is a really good sauna, I think. If you can get there, it's not always easy to get there, and maybe it takes a bit of practice in the beginning, but yeah, like any of those things, it's hard to switch off your brain.
Yeah. So we've got another comment from Kelsang, if you want to. Maybe not. So Liv asks, there's less of a tradition of sauna in this country, but feels like interest and enjoyment of it is growing. Have you visited many in the UK, and do you have any observations on the culture that's emerging?
I've yes, there's so much interest. I'm sure Gabrielle would back that up, and you know more than I do, but there seems to be a lot of enthusiasm and excitement, and us being British, you know, we're open to lots of different things because we haven't got the legacy of our own sauna culture. So we are free to try out lots of the bits we like from other cultures, you know, like the whisking from Lithuania, for example, which I know the British Sauna Society, there's training happening through this for sauna masters in Lithuanian whisking, or the Finnish tradition of pouring water on the rocks. There's lots of different things that we can do in the sauna, and or the peat sauna. And I think here in the UK, everyone will be up for trying things because that's what we like. We just have to get the saunas to be big enough, well designed enough, with good enough ventilation and everything to get the spaces right in the beginning, because the enthusiasm is there, and you know, it all takes time. We're at the beginning, and it's a melting pot of loads of different ideas and people trying things out, and that is really exciting. That's really, really nice to see. There is a lot of enthusiasm, and we also have our own, you know, it's small, but there was a Celtic sweat house tradition, which is being kind of uncovered by archaeologists in Ireland, in County Leitrim, and there was some in, you know, the Orkney Islands and things like that. But there's not much known, and you know, we have to go back thousands of years to get to what we were doing at that point, whereas the Nordic countries and the Baltics, they're lucky because it's the culture's there. But we can, you know, we can build that culture like we do, like, you know, chips and curry, as I'm always saying, or curry. We mix things and we make them work for our palate, and I'm sure that's what will happen with the sauna scene.
Yeah. So Kelsek said he couldn't unmute, but his comment was, met your wonderful in-laws last week in a sauna before the release of your book. So it just goes to show the power of sauna culture.
And that was in Southport. Yes. Nice to meet you. They told me that they told me about that. That's a very community-based sauna, which sounds like amazing. Everyone's chatting and in there, and that's another different kind of scene, I guess.
He also adds, Lal sauna often at request will pump it up to 140 degrees centigrade. So how much, you mentioned the chili sauna, how hot was that, do you know?
Oh gosh, I think it was about 130. Wow. And then they were pouring loads of water on the rocks, so it was obviously then becoming hotter and hotter by the minute.
Wonderful. Yeah, I couldn't deal with that.
I was trying. I was trying to, you know, represent the Brits by not running out after 3 seconds. But yeah, it was quite an experience.
Yeah. Do you think the UK will ever come to like it that hot, or?
I think so, because I think there's always that competitive edge. It's like the swimmers, you know, or not the swimmers. It's like athletes generally. You know, we want to push ourselves to extremes, and I'm saying the swimmers because in my local Lido at Parliament Hill, which is unheated, people swim like a kilometre in there when it's 3 degrees and so on. And you think that is really tough to be able to do that. And then they go in the sauna and they have to go in on the bottom bench and acclimatize slowly because it's dangerous to do it quickly. So I just think it's human nature to suddenly, you know, push it and push it and push it. So yes, I would say.
Lovely. So Liv said she's just ordered your book, so that's great.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions?
Holding up there.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Paul? Yeah.
Hi Emma, and hi Gabriella. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk about your wonderful experiences in the sauna world. Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of a sauna. I mean, my first real experience was over in Norway, and it was I was doing some work over there with some students, and I was invited by their professor to go to a public sauna. It was the middle of winter, and it was by the side of a frozen lake. There were cars parked in the middle of the lake, you know, that were fishing. They drilled the holes in the ice. That's how thick the ice was, and they kept a pipe bubbling to keep one section of water free, so that once you've been in the sauna, you could then walk down to the frozen lake and you could plunge in this ice pool, and it was just spiritual, you know. I mean, it was just that thing of them being able to just sit there on the benches at the side and, like you say, have a beer, you know. It was just amazing, and then go and do it all again, and just do it all again, and all of the old Finnish people were sat at the very top, you know, on level 6, and we were all on the floor down here, you know, because it was so insanely hot. And what I'd love to build one, and I'd love. Oh, by the way, I've just been to Copenhagen and had a sauna goose, GUS.
Oh yeah.
Which was, I mean, again, it was just a spiritual experience. There was the goose master came in, and you know, he put the herbs on the coals, and then the water, and then the oils, and then he wafted the heat around, and it was amazing. But I guess one question I have for you is so YOLO, what's it, Lolo? What was the word?
Yeah.
Lolu.
Yes, which is
yeah. It's how the steam works, right? I kind of read a bit about this, but I didn't know how to pronounce it. Is there something like, of all the saunas that you've been in, is there something about the positioning of the fire that what is it in terms of the design, do you think, that makes good Lolo?
Oh well, Nick's probably better placed to answer this, because he's Nick, you're working on building saunas, but I know in Finland your feet are supposed to be at the same height as the top of the stove. So there's a lot of thing like if the benches are too low, or the benches are too high, or the benches are at the wrong height, then that is definitely problematic for the experts. But I don't know, honestly, about the design of where's the best position for the stoves, but I know there's lots of books on that topic. Most of them are in Finnish, because building your own sauna seems to be a huge pastime there in the Nordics, and you know, it is important to get that right. But I didn't really go into that too much, because I felt like it was a bit specialist for the audience I was trying to aim the book at. But there is a lot of information, and I'm sure Gabrielle and Nick can help you point you in the right direction, or answer that. Do you know the answer, Gabrielle? Maybe you do, or Nick, I don't know.
I probably would defer to Nick, because I know I think in his WhatsApp description it's like Lolu throwing extraordinaire or something. I think when people, because say on the secretary, people do ask like a good starting point, and this book here, which I have to hand, which is the Lasse Liikanen one, is a great starting point. So yeah, highly recommend you read that if you haven't already.
Well, thank you.